I used to be a Weird Warriors kid. Now I'm a Weird Warriors adult. Each week I'm discussing a chapter of the iconic books by Aaron Hunter. My name is Charlie. This is my cat Lucky. And in today's episode, I will be talking about Prophecies Begin, Book 2, Fire and Ice, Chapter 2. Join me on this adventure into the world of warrior cats. Before I dive into today's episode, a quick reminder that if you'd like access to extra stuff, you can subscribe for just $5 a month on Substack. There's extended versions of episodes. There's the spoiler versions. Well, the spoiler extended versions of the episodes, which contain spoilers of anything in the books published in the book I'm currently on and later. And then you can also get access to the comment section and extra bonus episodes. But anyway, I also wanted to talk about a couple things going off of the previous episode that I had mentioned, but wanted to expand upon. So in the last chapter, Graystripe and Bluestar tell Fireheart that Ravenpaw's story hinders Redtail's honor because it implies that Redtail killed Oakheart, and a warrior never kills unless absolutely necessary. And Redtail was the most honorable warrior Bluestar ever knew. So I wanted to go back in book 1 and double check if that is really what Ravenpaw had said in his story. So it's page 223 in Into the Wild, which is in chapter 20. So let's find that here. Ravenpaw says, "The River Clan deputy didn't kill Redtail. Tigerclaw did." Firepaw says, "So Tigerclaw didn't kill Oakheart?" Ravenpaw says, "No, he didn't, after Redtail had killed Oakheart." Okay, so he does say Redtail killed Oakheart. "After Redtail killed Oakheart, Tigerclaw ordered me back to the camp. I wanted to stay, but he yelled at me to go, so I ran into the trees. I should have carried on running, but I couldn't leave while they were still fighting. I turned and crept back to see if Tigerclaw needed help. By the time I got near, all the River Clan warriors had fled, leaving just Redtail and Tigerclaw. Redtail was watching the last warrior running away, and Tigerclaw jumped on him. He sank his teeth into the back of his neck, and Redtail fell to the ground, dead." So that is Ravenpaw's side of the story. But what I don't understand... Hi, Lucky. Oh my gosh, he's been so adorable, putting his paws on my shoulder. Hi. Hi. You're my cute little warrior. What? He's tapping my shoulder again. What do you want, Lucky? You want attention? You want cuddles? You want to play? You just want me to look at you? You're very cute. Yeah, you are. So, what I don't understand is that if it would be so horrible to imply that Redtail killed Oakheart, why is everyone seemingly fine with the fact that Tigerclaw says he killed Oakheart in revenge? Is it because it was in revenge? Is that considered an acceptable instance where you can kill another cat? But I don't think it is, because on page 260 in chapter 24 of Into the Wild, Firepaw faces off against Clawface, the one who killed Spotted Leaf. So this would have been a revenge kill. However, before he could deal his death blow, White Storm knocked him aside and grasped the ShadowClan warrior. ThunderClan warriors do not kill unless they have to. We just need to let them know not to show their faces here again. So, according to White Storm, it's unacceptable to do a revenge kill. Yet everyone was fine with it when Tigerclaw came and heroically delivered Redtail's body, which Ravenpaw says is a dead body because of Tigerclaw, but Tigerclaw says it's because of Oakheart, and he killed Oakheart in revenge. I feel like this is kind of a confusing plot. Like, I feel like we need pictures of these cats, or like a chart, or some kind of like writing out their names and drawing arrows between the characters in different like color-coded versions where it's showing what one cat's version of the story is of who killed who, and another cat's version of the story of who killed who, and all of that. But I just don't understand the logic of why it's okay for Tigerclaw to have allegedly done a revenge kill, but it would not have been okay for Firepaw to do so. And also, Darkstripe isn't really scolded for wanting to kill Yellowfang. On page 159 of Into the Wild, which is chapter 13, Darkstripe says, "Throw her out? We should kill her now." And Bluestar looks at Darkstripe and says, "And what has she done?" Brokensaw said only that there is a rogue somewhere in the woods. He did not mention Yellowfang by name. The kits are safe. For as long as she is in my clan, Yellowfang will not be harmed in any way. Now notice, she's not saying, no, a warrior never kills unless necessary. She says, no, don't harm her because there's no evidence that she's guilty of anything, implying that if there was evidence that she was guilty of anything, she would have been perfectly fine with Darkstripe killing her. However, I also think Bluestar knows that Brokenstar was talking about Yellowfang, and she's just more kind-hearted and wants to know Yellowfang's full story before she makes any judgments. But what would her final judgment be if it turned out Yellowfang was evil or was a danger to the kits or something? Would it have been that they should kill her, or would it have been drive her out? I don't know. So their rules about when killing is and isn't acceptable seems to change and seems to just be do not kill when it comes to our main character. So that's a bit of a plot hole that I find to be annoying, and I hope their rules about this become more consistent as the series continues. But let's finally get into chapter 2 of Fire and Ice. So yes, Fireheart and Bluestar just had that conversation where Fireheart told Bluestar Ravenpaw's side of the story, and she was very dismissive of Ravenpaw's story, saying he has a vivid imagination and she's gonna let the clan continue to think he's dead to protect Tigerclaw's fragile ego and also to protect Ravenpaw's reputation rather than having the clan think of him as a coward. And Bluestar and Fireheart catch up with the clan, and Graystripe asks Fireheart, where do you disappear to? And Fireheart says, doesn't matter. And Graystripe doesn't press him, which I think is kind of odd. I feel like he would maybe ask a follow-up question, but I think for the sake of the narrative, they're just wanting to get to the gathering. So ThunderClan makes it down into the clearing for the gathering, and Graystripe asks Fireheart, where do you disappear to? And Graystripe points out that the ShadowClan cats are looking stronger than he thought they would, considering Brokenstar left them half-starved. And Fireheart agrees, and Graystripe points out that they had helped them do most of the battling. But White Storm overhears and says, "The Shadow Clan cats fought as hard as we did to chase out Broken Star. We should honor their determination to recover." And then White Storm goes off to talk to other warriors, and Gray Stripe and Fireheart look around at all the other cats at the gathering. And a gray tabby Tom from Shadow Clan, who Fireheart recognizes, walks over, along with the smoky black Tom and a small brown apprentice that Fireheart doesn't recognize. And Fireheart says, "Hello, Wetfoot." Now, I didn't remember the name Wetfoot, but I guess maybe Fireheart knows him from the battle with Shadow Clan. Let me double check the allegiances in Book 1. Okay, Wet Paw is listed as an apprentice in Book 1. So we're having some inconsistencies here. Unless Wetfoot just became a warrior. Yeah, I don't think we had met Wet Paw at all by name in the previous book. And hasn't it only been a couple days since the battle with Shadow Clan? And he says, "And this is my apprentice Oak Paw." So yeah, well, maybe he was Wet Paw at the beginning of this book, and by the end he was Wetfoot and had already been assigned an apprentice. But we didn't get any of those details from within Shadow Clan's perspective because we were tied to Fireheart's point of view throughout that book. So maybe there was some growth happening behind the scenes that we didn't realize was happening. But with as much exposition and reminders of what's been happening that there's been in the first chapter, and there's a little bit more of it in this chapter, I feel like it would have been helpful to have a sentence or two where it's like, Fireheart recognized this cat. He had recently become a warrior, or blah, 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 whatever background. Like, he had seen him at the battle with Shadow Clan, blah, 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 or had seen him at a previous gathering. Like, I don't know. It's just hard because we've been with Fireheart through everything. And, like, the days they skip, he's, like, doing patrols in ThunderClan. So when would he have met this cat? Maybe on a patrol when running into another patrol. But then mention that here, like, he recognized him from a time he had been on a patrol. Like, I don't know. It's just missing that little piece of information that would clear up what I feel like is not a plot hole necessarily, because it's not really super important to the plot, but just like a hole, you know. But then Wetfoot introduces the other cat as Blackclaw from River Clan. Also, I'm wondering if Oakpaw is named after Oakheart, but wait, never mind, because Wetfoot is from Shadow Clan. That's confusing, because you'd think a cat named Wetfoot would be from River Clan, the clan known for water. And then having the apprentice be named Oakpaw when we just had a major plot surrounded around the deputy of River Clan, Oakheart, being killed. It is a little bit confusing. So yeah, probably not named after Oakheart. And then Oakpaw says, "Hi, Fireheart." How does he know Fireheart's name? He literally just got the new name. And Wetfoot says, "I hear Blue Star made you warriors after the battle. Congratulations, it must have been a cold vigil." I'm like, how does he know that? Who would he have heard that from? How would any of the clans know that he just became a warrior? Are these patrols gossiping to each other about news when they run into each other on the borders? I don't know. Maybe not gossip, but maybe they're like bragging to each other, like, "Hey, our clan just got new warriors, so watch out." Like, I don't know. Hi, Lucky. But then Fireheart asks who that cat is over there, a sleek she-cat with a mottled brown pelt, who was sharing words with Tigerclaw by the Great Rock. Now, when I heard that description of the cat, I thought, this must be Leopard. I couldn't remember the second part of her name. And then turned the page, and sure enough, that's Leopard Fur, our deputy, growled the River Clan warrior. So she is the position that Oakheart was. And Fireheart feels tense at the thought of that, because, you know, it's like the whole situation that the first book was built around. But that's when Blue Star jumps onto the Great Rock to start the meeting with two other cats, one of them an elderly black Tom, Nightpelt. And Fireheart is surprised. Had he become ShadowClan's leader since Broken Star had fled? Now, before I move on, I want to backtrack just a second because I am really curious what Leopard Fur and Tiger Claw were talking about. Because from Leopard Fur's perspective, the story of what happened is that Oakheart killed Redtail and Tiger Claw killed Oakheart, meaning Tiger Claw killed the cat whose position she's now in. So you'd think she would be mad at him unless she is like power hungry and just wants to be the deputy and eventually the leader. But according to Ravenpaw, Redtail killed Oakheart and Tiger Claw killed Redtail. So if she knew that version of the story and believed it, she would still be mad at Tiger Claw, I think, for being like a traitor to ThunderClan, but also maybe happy that he killed the cat who killed her clan member. I feel like it's a bit convoluted thinking of all these different situations and who killed who and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, I'm very curious what they're talking about and what their standing is between them. I'm guessing she is mad at him, but is keeping things calm because of the truce. I don't really remember Leopard Fur's personality from reading the books when I was younger, so we'll keep reading and find out. But back to where I was getting to, which is Nightpelt. So as I first read that, I was thinking that I doubt Nightpelt becomes leader because I don't remember that happening, though Nightstar would be a very cool name. I really thought Blackfoot became leader, Blackstar, but I guess not because he got driven out of the clan. But I didn't remember who became the leader after Broken Star. But we do find out momentarily the answer to that question. But yeah, so Nightpelt's up there, Crooked Star's up there. Blue Star says, ThunderClan bring to this gathering their new medicine cat, Yellowfang. And everyone turns to look at Yellowfang, and she looks very uncomfortable. And Fireheart feels nervous for her. And then Yellowfang makes eye contact with Running Nose, the new medicine cat of ShadowClan, and they nod to each other respectfully, and Yellowfang seems to relax, and then Fireheart relaxes. And I love that. It shows Fireheart's empathy. And then Blue Star says, we also bring two newly named warriors, Fireheart and Greystripe. And Fireheart tries to look confident. He also feels a little uncomfortable under all the eyes of the clans. And then Nightpelt says, I, Nightpelt, have taken over the leadership of ShadowClan. So Nightpelt is the new leader of ShadowClan. But I noticed he introduced himself as Nightpelt, and I was thinking, so this must mean he hasn't gotten his 9 lives yet. He says, our former leader, Broken Star, broke the warrior code, and we were forced to chase him out. And Greystripe points out, no mention of how we helped them do it. And Nightpelt says, the spirits of our ancestors have spoken to Running Nose and chosen me as leader. I have not yet traveled to Mothermouth to receive StarClan's gift of 9 lives, but I will make this journey tomorrow night, while the moon is still full. After my vigil at the Moonstone, I shall be known as Nightstar. Is the moon still full for 2 nights in a row? Or is it just mostly full the next night? But yes, I love that name, Nightstar. It's such a good name. And Frostfur asks, where is Broken Star now? Nightpelt says, I think we can assume that he has left the forest with the other banished warriors. He knows it would be dangerous for him to try to return. Frostfur says, I hope so. And then Crooked Star says, let's hope Broken Star has had the sense to leave the forest for good. His greed for territory threatened us all. And RiverClan yells in agreement. And then Crooked Star says that now that Broken Star is not in charge of ShadowClan, their deal is off of letting ShadowClan hunt in their territory. And Nightpelt is very angry about that. He says that ShadowClan still has the same needs they had under Broken Star, and that RiverClan had made this agreement with the whole of ShadowClan. And the two leaders turn on each other, and Blue Star has to moderate and says that ShadowClan now has fewer mouths to feed, so they don't really need RiverClan's fish. And she points out that Broken Star went against the warrior code when he forced Crooked Star to agree to share the river. She also reminds Nightpelt that he hasn't yet received his 9 lives, so is he really confident to be making these demands? And Nightpelt just looks away angrily, and Blue Star also says ThunderClan has agreed to leave them in peace until they've recovered, and that she's sure Crooked Star will agree to do the same. And Crooked Star does agree, but he says only as long as ShadowClan is not scented in our territory. And Fireheart admires Blue Star's courage in that moment. Nightpelt says to Crooked Star they won't scent ShadowClan in their territory, and Blue Star's right, they don't need their fish. They can just hunt in WindClan territory. And Crooked Star's eyes light up and he agrees. Hey, we can too. There's extra prey for all of us. But Blue Star says no, WindClan must come back. And Crooked Star asks, why? Now, I just find Crooked Star to be an interesting character. Like, I didn't really have that much memory of how he was from reading these books when I was younger, but I at least thought he was, like, reasonable, and I suppose I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, he really gave into Broken Star's demands, whereas Blue Star did not, and now he is putting up more of a guard, which might be a combination of pressure from his own clan, because they sounded upset when he gave in to Broken Star at the other gathering, and also he must be feeling relieved that Broken Star is gone, and he's taking this opportunity to regain some strength for RiverClan and re-emphasize their previous boundaries. He might be viewing ShadowClan as weak, so it's less of a risk to stand up to them. At the same time, Nightpelt kind of was surprising me with how he was so upset about Crooked Star strengthening that boundary, because they don't need that extra space. They just lost a bunch of members of their clan that were being awful, so they do have less mouths to feed and less pressure from above their rank to suffer. Like, why would you want to keep the rules that your fascist leader had instated? And also, for both of them, it surprises me that they would be fine with taking advantage of WindClan's territory when RiverClan had given up some of their hunting grounds to share with ShadowClan, and the ShadowClan that's left had been oppressed by the ones who took it from RiverClan and WindClan. So you'd think both of those leaders would have some respect for WindClan, but nope. They're just worrying about themselves and just want that extra hunting territory. Whereas Blue Star is fighting for WindClan to come back. Like, they might be rivals, but she feels like they all have a right to their land. And Blue Star says, the forest needs 4 clans. Just as we have 4 trees and 4 seasons, StarClan has given us 4 clans. We must find WindClan as soon as possible and bring them home. But Crooked Star says that Blue Star's argument is weak. They don't need 4 seasons. They could go without winter, or as they call it, Leaf Bare. But Blue Star says that StarClan gave them Leaf Bare to let the earth recover and prepare for new leaf. The forest and the uplands have supported the 4 clans for generations. It's not up to us to challenge StarClan. And Leopard Fur says, why should we go hungry for the sake of a clan that cannot even defend its territory? That's bold of you to say, Leopard Fur, when RiverClan could not protect its territory either. It gave in to ShadowClan and just gave them part of the territory to hunt in. But then Tiger Claw defends Blue Star and says she's right, WindClan must return. Blue Star asks Crooked Star why he's so desperate for extra hunting territory. Don't they have enough fish? And RiverClan seems uncomfortable with this question, and Fireheart wonders why. And this might be another reason why Crooked Star is showing more strength and stubbornness, because maybe his clan has less prey available than the other clans thought. And Blue Star says to Nightpelt, "It was Broken Star who drove WindClan from their home. That is why ThunderClan helped you to chase him out." So this finally reveals to all the clans that ThunderClan does have some credit in driving Broken Star out, and that ShadowClan owes ThunderClan for that. And Nightpelt gives in and says, "We will allow WindClan to return." And Crooked Star looks away angrily, and Blue Star says, "Two of us have agreed, Crooked Star. WindClan must be found and brought home. Until then, no clan should hunt in their territory." And then the gathering ends, and Blue Star jumps down from the great rock, and Fireheart notices Crooked Star and Nightpelt looking at each other. There's something about the look that passed between them that made Fireheart's fur prickle. He wonders if Blue Star doesn't actually have Nightpelt's support. And I'm wondering if the two other leaders are planning to have their clans hunt in WindClan anyway. Then it says that Fireheart could tell Tigerclaw had not missed the exchange either. And I was thinking, wow, for once, Fireheart and Tigerclaw are on the same page. And sure enough, on the next page, it says, "For once, Fireheart shared Tigerclaw's concern." This was a shift in clan alliances he had not expected, and he wonders, after ThunderClan fought to help ShadowClan, why would they side with RiverClan now? And that's the end of chapter 2. Dun, dun, dun. It was a good chapter. I love a good gathering chapter, and I feel like we're still needing to get into like the plot of this book. Like, I think this is setting up the groundwork for it, but I'm ready for things to get moving, you know. It might be a couple more chapters till then, because I feel like we still have some more easing into them being used to being warriors and all that, but I really don't remember what happens in this book. But that's the excitement of revisiting them. So if you'd like to continue on this journey, consider subscribing here on Substack, whether it's free or the paid version, and subscribe on YouTube and whatever streaming platform you listen to this on. Share it with your friends who read Warriors, and come back next week for chapter 3. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. This has been Into the World of Warrior Cats.